I once heard two men share very different memories of their black pencils going missing at school. The first man began his story. I was in the fourth grade, just a kid, yet the memory of losing that black pencil still feels as sharp as yesterday. One afternoon after school, I reached into my bag and it simply wasn't there. A small, insignificant thing to most, maybe, but to me it was everything. It was my favorite pencil, the one I used to carefully trace lines and fill in my drawings. When I told my mother about losing it, her reaction was harsh. She looked at me, disappointment plain on her face, and called me irresponsible. I could feel her judgment cut through me, and she punished me hard that night. The experience was overwhelming, almost unbearable. I didn't just feel like I'd lost a pencil, I felt like I'd lost her trust. Her words echoed in my mind, making me feel careless and clumsy, and I told myself I would never allow this to happen again. I wouldn't come home empty-handed. So the very next day, I came up with a plan. I would take a pencil from a friend, not just once. I would keep taking pencils, just enough to never go without. It started as something small, almost innocent. I convinced myself it was harmless. I'd draw a pencil or two from my classmates, and I promised myself I'd be careful. The thrill was terrifying at first. I could feel my hands shaking as I slipped a pencil from someone's desk when they weren't looking. But with time, the fear faded. Day by day, it felt easier. The anxiety was replaced by a strange confidence. Eventually, I became so bold that I didn't just take pencils. I started to sell them back to my friends, each one unaware that they were buying back something that had once been their own. The thrill of not getting caught, of holding their pencils in my hand while they searched frantically, made me feel powerful. I was no longer just a kid who lost a pencil. I was in control. As the year went on, what had started as a small act of defiance evolved into something much bigger. I began to target not only my friends but the entire class. Before long, my business spread to other classrooms. I became known, not for who I was, but for my ability to find any pencil anyone might have lost or wanted. My reputation grew, and even teachers started to notice me as the kid who always had supplies. By the end of that year, I'd become so practiced that I was even sneaking to places I'd once avoided. The teacher's lounge, the principal's office. It was no longer about pencils. I started taking erasers, rulers, small notebooks, anything I thought I could turn into profit. And so, from one small loss, one missing black pencil, I had unknowingly set myself on a path towards something I could never have imagined. That year, I was no longer just an ordinary student. I was learning, practicing, becoming something else entirely. That was the year I went from being a kid who lost things to being a young, skillful thief. The second man began his story. I was in second grade when I lost my black pencil. I remember the feeling of panic that washed over me when I reached into my pencil case and realized it was gone. I came home from school that day and, feeling a little down, I told my mother about it, expecting her to be upset with me. But instead of scolding me, she simply asked, "Well, what did you do without a pencil?" I told her, "I borrowed one from my friend." My mother smiled and asked, "Did your friend ask for anything in return? Food, maybe, or something else?" I shook my head. No, she didn't ask for anything. My mother paused for a moment, her eyes thoughtful. "You see," she said, "your friend didn't just give you a pencil. She was trying to do something good for you without expecting anything in return. Look how kind she is. Now tell me, why don't you do good for others too?" I was confused. "How can I do good?" She looked at me, her expression warm and gentle. "We'll buy 2 pencils from now on, one for you and one for someone else whose pencil might get lost. You'll give that pencil to the one who needs it, and after the lesson, you'll take it back." I was surprised by how simple her solution was. I thought it was a small thing, but in that moment, it felt like something more. The next day, I took extra pencils to school. I didn't just keep them in my bag, I kept them in my hand, ready to offer to anyone who might need them. When a friend lost her pencil, I was the first one to offer mine. The look of relief on her face as she took the pencil from me stayed with me long after that day. As I gave away more pencils, something inside me started to shift. It wasn't just about being helpful, it was about making a difference, even in the smallest of ways. I felt a sense of pride, but also humility in knowing I was doing something good. With every pencil I gave away, I felt more connected to my classmates. It wasn't just the act of helping that changed me. It was the way that simple gesture created bonds between me and the others. My classmates began to rely on me, and I began to enjoy that sense of purpose. I was no longer just the quiet kid at the back of the class. I was the pencil provider, the one everyone knew they could count on. As the days and months went by, my classroom experience transformed. Not only did my academic performance improve, but my attitude towards school changed. I felt more engaged and eager to learn, because I saw the school not just as a place to study, but as a community, one where I had a role to play. I felt a deep sense of responsibility, and that made me more focused. The more I helped others, the more I realized that learning was about more than just books. It was about people. My interest in my lessons grew, and soon I found myself looking forward to every school day. I was not just learning facts, I was learning how to be a better person. Over the years, I continued to carry that lesson with me. It wasn't always about pencils anymore. It became about looking for ways to help others in every part of my life. The confidence I gained as a young boy, helping my classmates, became the foundation of who I would later become. I carried the values my mother taught me into adulthood. I graduated with honors, went on to a successful career, and more importantly, began a family of my own. And through all of this, I continued to live by the principle my mother instilled in me, to help others without expecting anything in return. Today, I run one of the largest charitable organizations in the city, dedicated to improving the lives of those in need. It started with pencils, something so simple, so small, but that small act of kindness opened my eyes to the impact one person can have. Every time I help someone, I think back to those days in second grade and feel a deep sense of gratitude for the lesson my mother taught me. Now, as I look back on my life, I realize that everything I am and everything I've accomplished started with one simple decision: to give a pencil to a friend in need. And in doing so, I discovered that giving is not just about what we offer, it's about who we become in the process.